We are faced with a number of absolute facts in life, absolute truths. The first is we are all born and we will all die. The second is that the sun rises and the sun sets. Time waits for no one or anything. And you can't change anyone. They can change themselves. Another absolute fact is that the only thing worth paying attention to is where you have 100% control. And in a survey that we ran across South Africa, the United States, and the United Kingdom, we discovered that from 10,000 businesses, 88% wanted to grow. But here was the thing about growth and about exit. Less than 15% had a real cogent plan to turn the talk into walk. And what we discovered from that is that 95% of their employees were unaware of the growth plan, and 68% of their functions, their systems, were misaligned to the growth altogether. It's no wonder that globally, 5.4% of companies started succeed in an exit. That's 94.6% that start and fail to sell. In family businesses and in the professional services sphere, 74% of businesses that succeed from founder to next generation fail. So what do business owners do? Well, they went out and they looked for help. They got help. They went to advisors that told them what to do. They went to coaches that told them how to think. They went to consultants that researched what they should do. Some did MBAs to learn about what others did. Some went to their accountants to see what they should have done last month. And a couple of folks go to success seminars where they walk out pumped and excited and inspired, as do I. It's no wonder that 88% of companies that sought help wanted growth as an outcome, not the advice, and only 5% of those that were given a growth plan were able to implement it through their businesses. My name is Pavlo Phitidis. I'm a co-founder of Aurik, the current CEO, an investor, and an author of 2 books, which are both quite recent in the last 3 years. Reset, Rebuild, Reignite, How to Thrive in Any Crisis. This could not be truer than what we have all lived through in the last 18 months, and it could not be more relevant as to what's happening with our fellow colleagues in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment. Sweat Scale Sell, which is how you build a business into a wealth-generating asset. I'm going to ask you all, if you can, if you're able to, please turn your cameras on to make this a human engagement. I have done so many webinars and they are truly dreadful. The opportunity to see people and hopefully within the next 6 months to meet face to face and engage as we used to will truly, truly be appreciated. Our journey ahead, I'm going to share a little bit about Aurik's origin. And the reason that matters is because for all of us, where we came from informs what we see in the future. I want to talk about the problems of growth and value in a business and a solution that we've identified that seems to work. I want to share some insights about tomorrow today. There are only 2 destinations for every business in the world. It's either a successful sale or a closure. How we get it done with clients that we work with, I have an invitation for you after that, and we will then move into 3 breakout rooms centered on growth, another one on scale, and a third on exit. And I will have you out at 5 minutes to the hour. That is my promise. So let's start, because PowerPoint is boring. I'm going to share a story with you. Once upon a time, you can sit back now and relax, but have your pen handy. Many, many years ago, I was born to 3 entrepreneurs, and the 3 entrepreneurs were all business owners. They had to be. They weren't capable of finding jobs in corporate life or in government life. 2 of my uncles worked well into their 80s. One was 88, and I think the other was 84. Not because they wanted to, but they had to. They had done well. They had done well. They built businesses. They did everything by the book. They stuck to their knitting. They worked hard. They looked after their customers, their clients, their teams. They provided income for their families. None of the two uncles, nor my father at that stage, had built businesses that could be sold. They weren't able to monetize the 40 and almost 50 years of investment and risk beyond the income that those businesses generated. I started off by acquiring two turnaround businesses at a very young age. I bought them each for R1. They both had debt. And what was interesting is I had bought them from people similar to my family, founders of businesses with great ideas who had committed themselves deliberately to one business and built it up over a period of time, who had equally done well, but were unable to enjoy a capital exit. After successfully, thankfully, turning those two businesses around, I went into mergers and acquisitions where I spent a number of years. And I was fraught with what I had on my books. The number of firms that were available for sale with great ideas, great backstories, incredible products, successful in income generation, could never meet the market in terms of their valuations. What the owners wanted to exit those businesses and what the market was prepared to value and offer the businesses created this massive gap. And many of those businesses remained on the books, not being transacted. I got called into the family business to work with my father. He was in a desperate position later on in his life, early 70s at that stage. And to my horror, I realized what I had come into. Family businesses are tough, they're fraught. They have so much potential if they're well managed and there's proper planning in place. And after years and years and years of commitment and hard work, although my father had generated good income to care for his family, he had no plan for exit. After succeeding in a sale in that business, burnt out, I spent 2.5 years, more or less, in the US on the West Coast, consulting across industry on capital raising, business transactions, startup strategy, growth strategy, and I got access to incredible data there. In one of the most vibrant countries in the world in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities, 94.6% of businesses started in the US fail to sell, they close. At the same time, I took on a role in a leading business school, marking MBA papers on company valuations. And we sliced and diced and looked at 7 different valuation methodologies. And it started to become so apparent that valuation is a mathematical formula, and the variables that impact valuation are architected into a business. It's very clear to me, and it remains so. Businesses are not bought. Businesses are built to be sold. Believing that this was a problem worth solving, we started Aurik with my co-founder a number of years ago. And the way we started was to start, build, and sell 12 businesses over a 9-year period. We had 2 listings, we had 2 grand failures, we had 3 management buyouts and 5 sales to corporate entities that were looking for innovation and growth. But what was most interesting is that the last handful of businesses took half the time and more or less about 1/3 of the cost to build to the same value as the first handful of businesses. What we started to notice in reviewing business 1 to business 12 was the evolution of a system of growth made up of 207 activities that, when put into a sequence on a measured basis, create a single, smart, and simple growth system that any business can use. We've had the privilege of applying that to close on 3,000 businesses now across 4 different countries. And across that portfolio, the average annual compound growth rate sits, including the last year of COVID, at 28.9%, which effectively doubles the size of revenue every 32 to 33 months. And those are average numbers. EBITDA, the stuff that generates the value, the capital value, the equity value in a business, sits at a growth of 32.4%. And thankfully, Our customers seem to like us. So to succeed, what was very clear is that we needed to resolve the impediments to growth, and we found them in 3 areas. In speaking with business owners over the years, consistently we see in leadership, how do I maintain relevance in my business? In a world of change, in a world of uncertainty, whether it be through socio-political actions, whether it be through technology, whether it be through regulation and legislation, whether it be through increasing competition and commoditization, how do I hold one strategy that I can invest in and fit with the world being relevant in change? Time. Most business owners we work with complain bitterly about the fact that they spend more time doing than leading. The daily, weekly, monthly activities and operations bogging them down. Control. Because we carry the can as business owners, letting go of control can be quite daunting. And the art of delegation, where it's done once in a safe, responsible manner, and it sustains in order to release your time, remains one of the biggest challenges that we see right across businesses, and that's of any size. In function, sales and marketing, how do we find, win, and hold customers today? Marketing strategies consistently are being tweaked, changed, and adopted. It's really hard to get a single strategy that is reliable and at the same time a sales engagement process that fits in this world of change that's equally reliable. Without reliably and predictably finding, winning, and holding customers, you can't rely on future revenues, and that means you can't plan. In operations, when we get deals on board, how is it that I get pulled into the engine room to ensure that delivery and fulfillment of my promise to customers and clients happens the way that it needs to happen? And then in team, and in a world where people are becoming increasingly educated, increasingly skilled, where there's so much free stuff on how you can improve your lot as a human being. In that world, why is it so hard to find the right people to do the right thing at the right time, every time? When it comes to the future, and this is something sadly that most of us only realize near the end of our careers in our own businesses, the issue of growth. What are the options for growth? Where does it emerge from? Where does it come from? And how do I do it smartly that when I grow my revenues, my profitability increases at a higher rate than the rate of revenue growth? Revenue growth with a tracking cost base really is very unappealing to any acquirer, and it hurts and harms valuations. Have I created a job, or have I built an asset? An asset has 3 features. You need to show income growth, you need to show capital growth, and it needs to generate income and capital growth independently of you. To the extent that you can sell your business is the extent to which a buyer looks at you and says, you are not the cause of that business. It can continue into the future as it has in the past, independently of you. And then wealth. Whenever I say to a business owner, what do you want for your business? Sadly, it's not what you want. It's not what you think is fair. It has nothing to do with the years of commitment and sacrifice. And it's got nothing to do with those beautiful, sparkling products on the shelf that still hold so much potential, or the great services you design that still hold so much potential. It's entirely mathematical, and there are 5 levers that we all today can implement in our businesses to maximize and ensure our valuations 5, 10, 15 years in the future. To get this right with clients that we work with, we resolve them by working with them and their teams, importantly, to build what we call an asset of value business. This is a business that has 5 layers to it, and the layers work in sequence. And what I'm going to do is spend a few minutes sharing what those layers are and how they come about. The first 3 layers, we always begin with positioning. And positioning answers the vital question, what makes your business special in the eyes of your customer? Very often when we speak to business owners, they claim it's the features of our products or services that do, or it's the price, or it's our service. And on closer inspection, Features today that you have as an advantage will be replaced by competitors tomorrow. A price advantage today has no sustainability tomorrow. And service very often is centered around you and your hand, making you one of the proximate causes of business success, something that harms valuations and prevents final exits. What we've noticed in the last 10 years is that businesses that determine clearly who do they serve and organize their customer segments tightly and neatly, and within those segments, what problems do they solve through their products and through their services? And then most importantly, how do they create a great experience in doing that? When that definition is crisp and clear, it is the early stages of setting you apart in a noisy, very competitive market space. And with that definition, shaping your positioning and beginning to give shape to your brand, the next stage is to build your system of delivery. A system of delivery really answers the question, how do you achieve consistent, reliable experiences? Consistent, reliable sales, consistent, reliable servicing of sales, and a consistent, reliable overall experience that you can count on each time, every time for your clients and customers. And if you think about what makes that up, it's the commercial systems. Your product and your service solves the problem for your clients. But the commercial systems, the way that we market to clients, the way that we then engage them in a sales effort, the way we would then service them in our operations, the way we would manage them through our administration, those commercial elements, which occur in every single business, are, when organized well and designed to deliver your positioning, enabling you to be confident that how you distinguish yourself in terms of the experience you promise will be achieved each and every time. It's those many, many activities placed in a sequence with measured outcomes in marketing, then in sales, then in ops, then in admin, which when integrated together as one, create that single experience. With that in place, the system of delivery, ensuring that you can promise and deliver on that positioning, you're then in a situation where you can bring it to life with a purposeful team. This answers the question, how do you get the right people to do the right thing at the right time, every time? It is far easier to understand what system sets your teams need to run in order to deliver on your positioning. That element that you believe sets your business apart in a very contested, competitive space. It's far easier to write up a job description. It's far easier to recruit for those positions. It's far easier to train and capacitate your team, to empower and run the system of delivery to offer that positioning in a marketplace. With those three elements in place, you will have two outcomes in your business. The first is organic growth. Growth that can happen consistently, year in, year out. It's not exciting growth, but it's regular, consistent growth. It's dependable, it's reliable, and most valuably, it doesn't center on you being there. It doesn't center on you being the cause of that growth. Your positioning is defined, the system of delivery is built in order to deliver on that positioning, and your team operate the systems. It is the earliest point at which time you can start moving from a place of doing as a leader in your business to a place of leading. And that leadership takes us to the last two layers. With time on your hands, you can now center yourself and focus yourself on growth. Growth needs to be led by the leaders in the business because growth has massive implications, not only for future valuations and income generation, but also in terms of risk. If you have time to focus on growth, the attention needs to be how do you grow both profits and revenues at the same time. In an asset of value business, what is fundamental to getting that right is that in any new growth opportunities you identify, you hold your market positioning. This is the problem we solve through that experience. You maintain your system of delivery because that's the essence of what creates scale. And you have your team who operate that system of delivery, making only minor adjustments to bring on that new growth. Getting that right means you bring in a new stream of revenue on a moderated cost overhead. And that's where new revenue growth starts to lead in new profit growth. With that in play, the last stage of focus and attention in an asset of value is how do you secure your value? And I'll share with you the 5 levers of valuation that all of us today can use to bake in and build our income generation capacity in our businesses, whilst also locking in future valuations. It's vital that all of us, as owners of businesses, understand the difference between a business that seemed to be a job and a business that seemed to be an asset. The best way for me to bring this to life for you, those two last layers will give you next level growth, so over and above organic growth. They will ensure that you're generating growing profits, and it'll give you more time. So let's go, the future today. So we built our asset of value. Positioning's clear, the system of delivery is working well, a purposeful team is leading the day-to-day activities, the month-to-month activities in the business. You, with your time released, have found 1 or 2 new opportunities of growth that don't disturb everything, that maintains the performance of the business. And we have hopefully built in the layers of valuation into a business. Now, more or less globally, more or less, businesses are valued at a 2 multiple to EBITDA. So your profits times 2 gives you an indicative value in your business. It varies depending on the environment you're in. It varies depending on the industry you're in. But really, in truth, it doesn't vary that much. There are lots of very sexy, fancy valuation techniques and methods that are used. But when it comes down to the final transactions, historically, consistently, and reliably, it mostly centers on 2 times multiple or 2 times profit. So just pause for a minute and think, what was your last 12 months of profit? Multiply that by 2, and that gives you an indicative value in your business. So let's take it forward on that basis. Let's imagine a business where you've created $1 million of profit. The starting point of negotiation with the buyer is where the buyer is going to say the valuation of your business is $2 million, a 2 times multiple on your profits. Now, the job of the buyer is to ask you a series of questions in a due diligence process to evaluate the true value of the business based on that 2 multiple. And they hope to bring that multiple down. Your job as the seller is to defend your valuation, and in answering questions and giving evidence to the value of your business, increase the multiple. The first set of questions that all buyers ask is, what makes you different? What makes you special? In an overcrowded, overcompetitive marketplace, where I as the buyer am spoiled for choice, whether I acquire you or your next 15 or 20 or 300 competitors, I'm spoiled for choice. What sets you apart from them? The next question they ask after that is, well, how does it all hang together? If you say you set yourself apart from your competitors, how does that business occur? How does it work? What are the gears that make the business operate and function? Because that buyer wants to be sure that what you have built today will be able to continue to operate tomorrow. The next question they ask is, well, who makes it all happen? And unless you can show that you've got a purposeful team leading and operating, managing and guiding the system of delivery that in its own right delivers on your positioning, the buyer takes advantage of that to diminish the valuation. The fourth set of questions the buyer asks is, what sort of growth can we expect in the future? And the way that they will judge that future growth is by evaluating your most recent growth. The idea is that you can grow a business at 10, 15% a year and then promise the buyer 30, 40% a year going forward. Simply don't hold water. The last set of questions are all centered on you and your partners. Without you there, will the business be able to function? The math rolls out pretty simply after that. If you can show that you have got a distinct positioning, the 2 multiple moves to 3. If you have a system of delivery, it moves to 4. If you can show a purposeful team enabled around the system of delivery, it climbs further. If you can show growth pre-exit, it starts to ramp up. And if you can show that without you there, the future that you are selling is a future likely to occur, those arguments, which need to be evidenced by the historical performance of the business, are what enable you to move from a 2 million valuation to a 7 million valuation for the exact same business. The converse is equally true. If you can't show what distinguishes you, and you can't show a system of delivery, and your team is uncertain, and your historic growth pre-sale is poor, and on close inspection, you are the business, equally diminishes your value. It is the difference between building a business into an asset or building a business that's a job. And I remind you, in my early years, the 2 businesses that I bought for $1 a piece, successful in their own rights, but these 5 elements weren't in play, which is what enabled me to acquire them and their debt, for $1 a piece. I want to share a quick story with you. One of our early clients was a baker who was integrated right across the baking industry. And he believed that what made his business special was a 4th generation croissant recipe. His great-grandfather was a baker in France who learned the recipe, passed it on to his son, his grandfather, who passed it on to his father, or his son, which was his father. And there are 4 generations of baking in this family. He loved the baking industry, and he'd started a business at the age of 29. At the age of 54, when we first met him, he walked in looking like this man, feeling like this man, absolutely exhausted. The problem was that he could not get the purchase price that he had asked for in the sale of his business. There was a massive gap between what the company was being valued for and what he needed as an exit. He also then complained about the fact that he used to love what he did. And it just felt that every single day it turned into a slog. He felt that he was the center of all activity. He felt that he alone was responsible for doing all the heavy lifting. And as loyal as his team was, as committed as they were, it still felt like they were sitting on the boat and he was the only person rowing. He was fed up with it, and hence he wanted to exit. And when he described his life there, he described it as a life where without him there, the likelihood of the business continuing was weak and poor. We decided to work together, and over a period of 2 years at Aurik, we worked with him and his team to reposition the business away from being integrated across the industry and focused on the hospitality sector alone, specifically into hotel groups that needed continental breakfasts 365 days a year. He then built a system of delivery from a marketing point of view, in learning that hotel groups buy beyond the food and beverage manager who evaluates the quality of the product. They include finance managers looking for cost advantages, human resource managers looking for onboarding procedures to be simple and easy, procurement managers ensuring that global standards of food safety and health are met, as well as fair trade procurement propositions were in play. And for the first time at the age of 55, he had realized that the opportunity to market his business, which solved the problem through his croissant recipe, but needing to create an experience that would resonate across 3 additional buyers in the buying process, finance, procurement, and HR, is what turned his marketing engine on for the first time. At the same time, he created a sales engagement system behind the marketing engine, which led to extensive conversion of new clients coming on board. He dominated in hospitality in the very early stages, and the business grew substantially. At the same time, it started to release his time, and with his time released, we encouraged him to look for next level growth opportunities. But the argument was held, and it was held true, that the positioning, who do you serve, what problem do you solve, and what experience do they need? The experience they need is 100% consistent, reliable, 365-day onboarding of fresh baked goods. The problem they solved was that the goods themselves needed to please customers and guests. And he found his next opportunity in the supermarket industry, where the fresh baked good opportunity every morning, 365 days, is crucial to secure morning trade. And morning trade is the difference between the 29th day of break even or profit for a supermarket owner or not. In entering into the supermarkets, he maintained his positioning, he maintained his system of delivery. There were a few adjustments with regard to team performance, but what it led to was a business moving from 54 million rands worth of revenue to 136 million rands worth of revenue approximately 30 months later. Most excitingly, profit increased by 24.3%. The valuations that he was moaning and complaining about, 17 million rand when we met him, are now running at well over 231 million rands. From the age of 55 to 57. It's never too late. Never too late for none of us. How do we work with you to get your business built into an asset of value? I want to share a quick analogy with you, because building a business is no different to being the captain of a ship. When you're the captain of the ship, you have to set a destination. It's your job to make sure that the ship gets to the destination. You have to organize your crew, your team. They need to know what systems they need to run to keep the ship moving. No different to a business. But importantly, as a captain, we can choose to spend our time in one of two places. We either spend it on the bridge of the ship, where we have a 360-degree view. We have instrumentation to navigate from where we are to where we want to be. And if that port is finally an asset of value, it's your job to make sure that day in and day out, you're making steps and moves towards achieving that destination. Alternatively, we can spend it in the engine room. The engine room is below decks. It's responsible for propulsion. It's what makes the business move. But propulsion without direction puts any ship eventually, once the food, fuel, and water has run out, stranded out at sea. It is the difference between the 94.6% of businesses that don't sell to the 5.4% that do sell. Our jobs as business owners is to split our time between the engine room and the bridge. And we, from an Aurik point of view, from an asset of value mindset point of view, argue that 70 to 80% of your time needs to be spent on the bridge. And that requires you to have a reliable engine room. So if we sail together on a journey to take your business from where it is today to an asset of value, we do so over a 24-month period. And we do so over a 24-month period because it takes time to institute change, make changes in behaviors, make changes in systems. Our journey looks like this. We would begin right up front running diagnostics on the business itself. And we run 4 different sets of diagnostics. We do a deep dive into all the underlying systems. We look for the 207 activities. We look to see what's there, what's not. We look to see what's there that can be improved. And we look to see what's there that's working perfectly well. It's an on-site deep dive into the underlying bones and muscle of the business itself. We look at numbers and we turn them all into ratios, because ratios hold future opportunities. A trial balance looks at the past. Properly done, ratios can point to opportunities that lie ahead. We look at the team dynamics of leaders in the business. Are you playing to your strengths? How do you work with each other? How could it be optimized? And then finally, we look at contextual strategy. Given where the business is today, given the forces of change around the business, competitors, customers, suppliers, technology, legislation, the socio-political environment, the economy itself, where is the future empty space that, if we can see it today, will allow us to build a business that will be relevant tomorrow? With that done and that in play, we then set 10 growth goals that we facilitate between yourselves as teams and leaders in the business. Where do you want your business to be 2 years from now? How do you want to measure it in terms of strategy, in terms of systems, in terms of numbers? How do you see yourself 2 years from now compared to how you see yourself involved in the business today? And with that set, we then configure the asset of value growth system to deliver on those outcomes. And that process relies on us working with you and your teams to build out the positioning of the business, what we believe will create distinction in our overcrowded competitive space. That will be manifested through lead generation systems or marketing systems. The activities in a sequence that can be measured with a job description to allow your team members to run and operate. Lead generation. Followed on by that, lead conversion. Because when leads come in, they need to be converted. Followed on by that, lead fulfillment, the operational functions in the business. This work we do with you and your teams. And we do it with you and your teams because if your teams are involved, you will get insight from the coalface. They feel heard. They see that they are co-owners of the systems that are being built. Through that, they become automatically capacitated on the systems and they become wholly accountable for the performance of those systems. One of the most frustrating aspects of business growth is when you have a growth plan that either is never implemented or struggles to get implemented. And because from an Aurik point of view, 70% of our fees are attached to your growth performance, as we build out the growth system, we want to ensure that your team are able to implement it the very next day. So we move through creating the system of delivery. From there, we ensure that the team is well entrenched in operating the systems, and that then leaves us sufficient time to focus on next level growth opportunities. The way we get this delivered with you is we have our crew members on board. You would work with up to 12, 13 accredited expert facilitators across the asset of value system. In effect, the way to look at this is horses for courses. People who are excellent at goal setting might not be fantastic at operations. Members of our team who are expert at marketing might struggle with some of the governance issues. We find the most ideal team members on our side to work with your team members in order to implement each of those elements. They have seen many businesses and many systems and many partnerships and many families and many teams at work. And through that, their jobs are centered around facilitating the implementation of the asset of value growth system to deliver on your goals, but doing so by ensuring that your teams are wrapped in, engaged, and involved. There's an expression that some of our clients use where they Aurik a problem in their business. And the process of Auriking it is really delivered through the work that we do with you. Eventually, your teams learn a very particular technique on how to close a gap, meet a problem, and solve around it, and to do so largely independently of you, because once those team members take ownership of their system sets, they themselves become leaders in that light. All of this sees the entire business loaded onto a dashboard. From the early stage diagnostics, the goals that get set form, let's call it the path of navigation that we're going to sail with you on. We collect data on a monthly basis from the business. Only 13 points of data are financial data because financial data has a tendency to look in the past. The remaining 25 odd points of data we collect all point and look into the future. What's critical when navigating is to attempt to see where the future storms lie so you can navigate around them. And what's equally critical about data is that it allows you as the captain of the ship to ensure that month on month you're navigating logically and systematically to that destination. And that's what we refer to as the integration sessions. At the same time, it gives you a visual representation of your engine room. Every system built is visually represented. Remember, activities in a sequencer can be measured. Those system sets that are built can be accessed by the teams responsible for running and operating them, which then starts to provide you with a very interesting delegations framework. The handover of responsibility of daily, weekly, monthly operational activities to team members, giving them an opportunity to shine and perform, and ensuring that whilst you're on the bridge of your ship, you can see exactly what's going on in the engine room. Finally, this creates for you the body of evidence that supports that exit. When a buyer says, what makes you special? How does it all work, the system of delivery? Who makes it happen, the purposeful team? Growth ahead, reflecting the growth recently acquired, and your role in the business. It gives you the body of evidence to move from a 2 multiple to a 7 multiple. I want to end off very briefly by just talking about why Aurik is your best partner to get it done. And there's 6 reasons. The first is because we are not consultants, and we are not advisors, and we're not coaches, and we're not trainers. We are growth partners. We need to put our money where our mouth is. We align very, very quickly with you, and we align our growth to your growth. Our fees are linked to the growth performance in the business. It's not a bill you and leave you engagement that's typically found across industry. For that reason, we select as carefully as you would select in terms of onboarding a growth partner. Next, we offer value way beyond 1 or 2 fantastic individuals. Our facilitators are expert, they're fully accredited, and specifically, they have skills to work with you and your teams to ensure your teams become the owners of the systems that shape out and build out the growth path for you. We measure impact on an ongoing basis. Because we want teams to be able to implement fast, for the reason that we need to acquire growth fast, for the reason that we're relying on the growth in order to earn our fees, we ensure that the process of delegation is managed and supported in the manner and way with which we work with you and your teams. When systems are built and your teams are involved, they are capacitated to operate and run the systems. It's tangible. The dashboard is there. The representation of the business is there. Its path to where we are today is there, implicating the path for the future. It's complete. One of the things that we believe sets us apart is that we offer a single, smart, simple asset of value growth system. It's an end-to-end solution. And through that, we ensure that we build in today the 5 levers of valuation for tomorrow. Plus, folks, we have an ace up our sleeves. At the end of this month, we'll be signing an agreement with one of the top 10 M&A legal firms globally, represented across 172 countries. The reason this matters to us is we have offices in the United Kingdom servicing the UK and Europe, and the United States servicing the US, as well as South Africa. And many of our clients are looking for opportunities to stretch across different domains into different currencies, specifically true for South Africans who want to leverage the Rand dollar opportunity, where operations can be had over here, but new market opportunities can be opened up in Europe, in the United Kingdom, and in the United States. And through our global partnership, we now have access right across most of the states in the US, the whole of the United Kingdom, and about half of Europe. At the same time, we have growth capital, equity capital to support growth initiatives embedded into the Aurik ecosystem. It makes for a very easy engagement in us knowing you, you knowing us, to support the accelerated growth of your business should capital be required. I want to end off with just a couple of asks. My first ask is let's meet. Meet with one of my team members. They're able, they're capable, they love the business of business. and they're skilled in being able to identify whether we can or can't have an impact on your business. Because our fees are attached to your growth, if we cannot deliver that value and we are not sure that we can, we will not engage. However, if we can, and you believe we can, we will provide you with a growth proposal over 24 months with the full disclosure on how the fees will be attached to your growth performance, and it will be centered around you creating your business into an asset of value. Should you accept the proposal and should we proceed from there, you secure a growth partner that has historically delivered a 28.9% average compound growth rate in revenues, a 32.4% EBITDA growth rate, an exit plan and strategy baked in, and the ability to raise growth capital in order to accelerate the value of your business. And if not, our undertaking and promise to you is that you remain on our books, because we are constantly networking and collaborating and joining clients of ours to other business people where we believe there are growth opportunities through collaboration. With that, I'm going to end my presentation and we're going to move into breakout rooms. We've organized 3 breakout rooms that will run for approximately 15 minutes. The first breakout room will be headed by Corinne Engelbrecht, a co-founder of Aurik, and it's centered on scale. What is the system of delivery? How do you get it built? How do you organize your team? How do you secure delegation? And how do you ensure that you're building capacity in the business? I will talk to growth around positioning and competition, customer acquisition, and the 2 different types of growth, organic and next level. And one of our co-founders, Johan, will talk specifically to exit, the future exit and sale of a business, the levers of valuation and growth, and how you secure that EBITDA profit growth that overachieves your sales and revenue growth so that you can deepen the value of the business and ensure you have a lift to that final multiple. And with that, I'm going to ask Pippa to take us into the breakout rooms. Please be open with engagement. Put your questions to us. Let's debate it in a roundtable session, and let's ensure everybody walks out with value. At the end of 15 minutes, I'll meet you back in the main room where we'll conclude. Pips, if you can please activate the growth rooms.